Okay, it keeps telling me that I have a bad connection. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on. I think I have an okay connection. We'll keep trying it. See if we can make it work. See if I can make this work. Hopefully. Okay, I'm going to tell her I'm on. Okay, so I just met this fabulous lady, Jill, Dr. Jill, at retreat last month. She's texting me back. See if I can get her added to the video. She's asking how to join. I don't really know. I'm telling her to watch, and I'll add you. I don't know. Check notifications. Does anybody know? I need to know. There we are. There she is. Oh, good. Okay. Approve. I have to ask her how this worked. Future reference.
Did we get it?
Hi. It works.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. So for future reference, how does this work?
I'm not entirely sure. I clicked a bunch of buttons.
I know. That's kind of how I feel like we just try a bunch of ways and eventually it works.
But you definitely have to turn your phone sideways. That somehow makes a difference. So that allowed me to have a join button. So
awesome. Well, I tagged you, so somehow. Okay.
Perfect. Yes.
So I introduced you a little bit just by telling everyone that you were an ER doctor and I met you at retreat and that you're fabulous. So, now you have to live up to being fabulous. Yay!
I've been up since 5. Give me a break.
Oh my gosh, I feel so bad for you too because I was thinking about you having a full shift today. You're probably brain dead or feeling like that.
It was a pretty easy day today, so I'm good.
Okay.
It's my children make me more brain dead than anything else.
Isn't that true?
Mm-hmm.
That's so true.
Yeah, they somehow. Yeah.
It's a different kind of energy.
You love them. Yeah, well, it's because you love them. And so, some of these people at work that are soul suckers, energy suckers, they're not family, but when it's your own child, somehow they have that way of worming in and sucking all the energy, whereas other people, you can cut them out. Dude, if you come in and start hitting me with balloons, you are in such big trouble.
Hashtag mom life.
Hashtag why do they always find me down here when I'm in the middle of these lives?
They always find you when you're hiding. Okay, so let's get to it so we can not bore everybody. So I loved your story. I want to hear your story. When I heard you talk about pain and the connection with serotonin and fibromyalgia diagnosis, I was like, it was something I had never heard before. And I wanted you to share that with everyone.
Sure. And it wasn't something I had ever known before. And, if you listen to Thomas's stuff, there's a lot of stuff that he and I went to the same med school. And we, specifically us and everyone just wasn't trained in gut health. There wasn't, when we were in med school, all these serotonin reuptake inhibitors and all those things your Paxil, your Celexa, your Zoloft, all of those things were just starting to come out. So there wasn't a ton of information on them. But for myself, my own personal story was that a couple of years ago, I was getting to the point where I was down. I was miserable. I've always had a little bit of anxiety and depression. And I used to sleep with a weighted blanket and I loved it. And then something happened and it got to the point where everything in my body ached, all of my joints, all of my muscles. And I got to the point where I couldn't even sleep with my weighted blanket on me because it was so painful. And I ended up, even though I am a doctor, I put all my symptoms in Google because I didn't want to believe that what I already knew was true. It was that I was going to carry some type of diagnosis, called fibromyalgia. There are people who will show up in the emergency room and they want hardcore narcotics for this. So unfortunately, fibromyalgia has gotten a really bad rap. And it was always the crazy 40-year-old, mid 40s, depressed women who were always divorced. And it had a bad rap. And the last thing I wanted on my medical record was that I had fibromyalgia because there was just so much stigma that came with it.
Totally.
But I had to believe that, I just had to turn all my symptoms over to my doctor and let her go. So the poor woman, she came in and she's like, so what brings you in today? I'm like, oh, I have end-stage fibromyalgia, Lyme disease, and adrenal fatigue, and she stopped and I'm like, kidding, and then she thought, right? She's like, oh my God, another one. And so by the end of the visit, she's like, I hate to tell you, but you're awfully fibro-y. And I was like, oh no. She goes, no. She's like, Truly, she goes, I have one normal patient with fibromyalgia. And I was like, seriously? She goes, yep, she's on Cymbalta. I see her once a year. She's fine. And I thought, okay, well, let's give it a whirl. And so it was the craziest thing. After 3 days being on Cymbalta, which is a norepinephrine and serotonin reuptake inhibitor, and what that means basically to people is it increases the amount of dopamine and serotonin in your brain. Is basically what its end result is. And after 3 days on that, all my pain went away. And it really, like, in the beginning, I was like, this is awesome. I can take a pill and I'm all better. And that was just it. And that was it for me for about a year and a half. And then the next step down was that I got to the point where every morning I woke up and I was eating chocolate covered mangoes just to get my day started. So just needing that massive sugar bolus to get things started. And at that point, my psychiatrist, I said, I can't keep doing this. Like, I'm gaining weight. Like, I have all of these sugar cravings. I know it's just trying to get energy and get going. She goes, no problem. Here's some Adderall. And I was like, whoa, no, I don't want, in my mind, Adderall is meth, right? Which it kind of is. So again, there was that stigma of I don't want to be on meth. Like, I'm a doctor. I can't be on meth. This is ridiculous. So now I'm a fibromyalgia meth addict. Like, so it all just kind of started coming in my brain. And I was like, I can't do this.
You're like, what's happening?
Yeah. But I'm like, I was like, something's wrong. But the next morning I woke up and here I am eating my chocolate covered mangoes thinking this isn't right. Like, this isn't right. And I was like, I can't get any fatter because then I'm going to get more depressed and then this is all going to get bad. So I'm like, great, I'll take the meth. And I will tell you, it got me through the day, but it was a very like shoot you up, drop you down, shoot you up, drop you down. So like you got through the day, but you just kind of like,
it's just like a blood sugar imbalance. It's just like when you're like eating the sugar and like up and down, up and down, up and down all day, or caffeine.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
Yes. And the problem with all of these things is for anybody out there who's a caffeine addict, they will notice that it shoots you up and then it drops you off. And for somebody who was like myself, that was super unhealthy, had no awareness of gut health, wasn't making any of my own chemicals, when it would shoot me up, I would blow the energy that I didn't actually have. So then not only did it drop off, but then I was really tired because when it had buzzed me up, I was like, hey guys, what's up? Blah, 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 and I'm like, I don't have the energy for this. Like, can I just shut up? But I couldn't. And so I would blow what little energy I had. And then that makes it even worse on the downside. And so here I was on meth, on the Cymbalta.
Meth meaning Adderall for those who just joined us.
Sorry, yeah, that wasn't really on meth. But I mean, it's really meth. And that's
well, let's change the title of this, ER Doctor on Meth.
On meth, yeah, perfect. I'm sure that won't get me fired. No problem at all. Really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll work out perfect, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, and then COVID hit, right? And then, so there I was in the middle of like my, barely getting by with Adderall. And they're like, hey, take your kid home and homeschool her. And I thought that was wonderful. And that was where I was on the Adderall and then the Nutella, the Costco jars of Nutella. That's what I was into. And so when I hit that, and Thomas had some post on his modern medicine, and I was like, fine, I'll drink the Kool-Aid. And so I had a long discussion with Brooke, and I said, fine. I said, I am so far down. And initially where I was okay with medication fixing it, I wasn't okay with that anymore because I had gotten down so far. And for me, the thought of being on Adderall, meth, and needing this, there had to be something else. There had to be something else. I couldn't there was no way, because all you do is it's being a meth addict. Think about it. Like, it works for a little while. And then what happens when the meth doesn't give you the same high? What do you have to do?
More.
Right. So I'm like, wait, so I'm going to get to the point where the Adderall is not going to do me any good, and I'm going to need more. And then I'm going to need more. And then I'm going to need more. And then my psych nurse practitioner, she's like, when you go through menopause, you lose even more dopamine.
Oh, yeah. And you're like,
and great. And so I'm on 60 of Cymbalta. I'm like, well, how far up can I go on this? She's like, probably like 120. And I'm like, so I'm going to be 80. I'm going to be on 120 milligrams of Cymbalta and how much meth? Like,
Right.
and the thing is Adderall is a controlled substance. So you are constantly going to the pharmacy every month to get your fix because it's a controlled substance. You know, you can't get 3 months at a time. And so it's this constant time out of your day to go and get your drugs. And it was
Right.
just,
And it feels bad.
it does. It
Yeah.
felt awful. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how am I any different than the guy on the street? Like,
Right.
you know, ugh. And so at that point, like I needed something better and I was desperate. So I tried Plexus and it was kind of crazy. The first thing that I noticed was I was able to use the Edge product, which is a really, really, really clean source of caffeine and actually a phenomenal replacement for those people who have ADHD. Edge is a phenomenal replacement for Adderall if you're not on high doses of that. And
Okay.
I was able to use that to actually wean myself off of the Adderall within about a week.
That's
And it
awesome.
was awesome because there was something with the rest of the stuff that I was on, the pink drink, the Metaburn, everything else all of a sudden boosted me during the day. And within a week, I didn't miss the Adderall.
That's awesome.
It was just
So,
crazy.
What was your thought process when you switched over? Because you were looking at the Cymbalta for like serotonin, and you were trying to
And
increase
dopamine.
those good gut bacteria to help increase serotonin in your gut. And then you also knew you needed energy. Were those kind of the things that you were talking to Brooke about? Did you know about yeast overgrowth before that? You didn't really know you had it. You knew you had it.
So
You didn't later?
no. So yeast overgrowth is it's something that we kind of laugh at, and I'm sorry I laughed at it. Whoever, I'm sorry. It's totally a real thing. But you know, people come in there like, oh, I have yeast overgrowth, so I'm drinking my alkaline water to get rid of my yeast, and you're just like, oh my God, who is this frou-frou person? So when I actually signed up with Brooke, I was like, Brooke, tell me on the fly, is this yeast overgrowth really a thing? Because you know, Thomas and I were both doctors. Like, you can tell me. And she goes, well, it kind of is a thing. And I was like, yeah, but that's what the crazy people say when they come in. And she goes, well, let's just get you started on the product. You know, she didn't want to get stuck in the details because the end result she knew was going to be good. So she wasn't going to fight me on whatever my beliefs were because it didn't matter because she knew that it was going to work. And so about a week and a half in, I called her and I'm like, Brooke, the weirdest thing is happening, because she didn't really specifically harp on sugar cravings and she didn't harp on yeast overgrowth because she knew it was like a sore spot for me and something I wasn't really going to believe. Right. And so about a week and a half in, I called her and I was like, so Brooke, the weirdest thing has happened. I actually, like, my sugar cravings have dropped by 75%. Like, I don't care about crackers anymore. I don't really need sweets. Like, tell me which one's doing it. And she goes, Jill, does it really matter which one's doing it? I'm like, yeah, I want to know which one of my supplements is doing this. And she goes, are you sure? And I was like, yes, why? And she goes, well, it's the Probio 5. And I was like, the one that kills yeast. And she was like, yeah, but again, does it really matter? And I was like, yes. I'm like, is this really a real thing? She goes, I don't know. You tell me. And I'm like, it's a thing. I'm a believer now. And for all those people, again, I'm super sorry I made fun of you. But
you don't know what you don't know. And I feel
you don't know what you don't know. And when you're not taught it.
And you have to live it, because like all the time people take probiotics, they don't work. They think they're working, they hope they're working. And then all of a sudden they try this one, they're like, oh my gosh, like I feel different. And that's the whole point of eating right and taking nutritional supplements, is to feel better. If you feel better, like that's the whole point. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah, and the crazy, Probio 5 is not, they call it a probiotic, but it's not like just a probiotic. Right. It is specifically formulated to get rid of the yeast. It's got the chitosanase or the chitinase, whatever you want to call it. Right. It's got so many things in there. It's not just a probiotic. And so I wish they would call it Probio 5 and so much more. Like, and maybe there's 5 ingredients. I actually haven't even thought about why they call it Probio 5, but maybe there's 5 things in it. I don't like probiotics, the chitinase.
Well, the digestive enzymes too. It helps you to digest lactose, and people who are lactose intolerant have to digest your food. I mean, it helps your gut to process your food and your nutrients the way it's supposed to.
Right.
And when you heal the gut,
then just a probiotic.
No, totally not. Yeah. And I tell people all the time, it's a great deal because you're getting digestive enzymes and antifungal and probiotics that legitimately work, not the junk that you get at the store that don't work, all in one bottle for a really good price.
It like $32. And then there's some of us who, you know, and God, it was I'm trying to think who had it on their page the other day, but they were saying, you know, like, thank God for Probio 5 because that's about the only thing I can do to keep my yeast under control. Because, you know, there's days where, you know, we're not perfect. Yeah, we're selling the Plexus product, we're living the Plexus life, but we screw up. We have a piece of cake every once in a while, and then you notice that piece of cake leads to a little something and a little something, and then you're like, damn it. My husband was so cute the other day. I came home from that Plexus retreat and I might have had a little too much carbs and stuff. And my kid had she had these drops, you know, the gummy drops, the candies.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, give me some of those. And he looks at me, he goes, somebody needs more Probio 5. And it was like, I was like a light went off and I was like, oh my God, I do. And it was so nice to, like, at first you think, oh, this isn't working anymore, it's wearing off, or whatever stupid stuff, you know, comes in the back of your head. And literally all you do is you check yourself, you up your Probio 5, you decrease the crap that you're eating, and you get it all back in. Like, I've never had it where I can screw up and then backtrack.
You fix it.
It takes an extra bottle of Probio 5.
Takes some time. Yeah, no.
But you can.
So I was talking to Cher this morning. Cher and I did a live because I accidentally fell into this no sugar October thing by posting a question on my Facebook page. I know. I said it. It's out of the bag. I know, and now I can't take it back. So I'm doing this thing that I didn't want to do. It's a group. I have a group now. This stuff is happening. Anyway, so I'm interviewing Cher this morning about it, and she said the same thing. She said when she starts craving sugar again, she recognizes that, well, you know, something's going on with a medicine, a toxin in the environment, stress, food, something. She ups her Probio 5, and then she also takes more Slim. She takes an extra Slim to help to, you know, balance that blood sugar more. And you can even take Balance too. You probably haven't even dipped into Balance yet, have you?
Oh, I've dipped into everything. Are you kidding me? As soon as the Probio 5 started working, I was like, I'll take anything else. Like, whatever can it do? And the Balance is super nice because if you know you're going to screw up on a meal, you can take that before it. But what I also wanted to say is not only when you're sugar craving is do you notice that it's truly a sugar craving, but for me in a 12-hour shift, right around 4 or 5 o'clock, I start wanting to eat all the graham crackers at work because, you know, we don't have a ton of food. I will have eaten everything that I brought with me, which is enough to sustain me for the day, but all of a sudden I want to start mowing through whatever I can. And I have an active pack. And I drink about a quarter of an active because what I realize is my sugar cravings come from 2 places. 1, I've eaten too much and my yeast is starting to get out of control. Or 2, I'm actually just tired. And if I can, you know, take that active and drink just a quarter active, not even a whole thing because those things are a little bit crazy, even sometimes just like 3 swigs. Then so you really, the cool thing about Plexus is it teaches you to check yourself because when those cravings come back, like it's not just habit and you do it, you check yourself and you're like, all right, what am I? Am I yeasty? Am I tired? What am I? And you have all the choices to fix it.
It's a tool. Yeah. And that's one reason I love active over Metaburn for some people and for some things, because I feel like you can adjust it. So, you know, you can have that active and have 100 milligrams in that thing. And you can say, well, I'm trying to wean myself off of Coke. Coke has 30 milligrams. I'm going to use a third of a packet or whatever. I love that.
And what I love too about active is because it is such a clean source. We were talking about that bounce up and that bounce down, and that doesn't happen with active. It slowly takes you up. It keeps you at a nice level, and then you kind of wean down. It doesn't blow you and then drop you.
Right.
It's different. It's different than your coffee. It's different than your Coke, and your Coke is a whole different deal because it's caffeine mixed with a crap ton of sugar
and a crap ton of toxins. All that syrup and the whatever they use to make it black and all this stuff. It's terrible. And high fructose corn syrup and how it doesn't, you never even know that you're full. It's basically like drinking nothing except it's just empty calories that are just making you fat and feel terrible.
You're never full because if you watch Thomas's one on the metabolism, you know, once you know, if you ever notice once you start eating sugar, why do you want to keep eating more and more and more? And it's because you've switched what your body's using for fuel. And so now the body feels its blood sugar dropping and it's like, well, I'm running off of blood sugar, so I better send, you know, messages, I need more blood sugar. And so that's why when you eat sugar, you want more sugar because you switch what the fuel that your body's running on.
It's fascinating, and it makes me think this no sugar October is probably a good idea because it's a great
wonderful
idea,
for you.
Yeah, to get I know, it's so nice. That's so nice for you. But it is so nice to be able to, like, first of all, like I've said this before, I never would have given up sugar before Plexus. I was such an addict. Oh, I couldn't have done it. I could not have suffered through it. I couldn't have made it. The one time I tried to do it, okay, well, 2 times. So one time I did once. Lent, and the Lent time I experimented with artificial sweeteners because I could not get off of the sweeteners. It was a nightmare. Ask my husband how terrible those artificial sweeteners are for your gut and for your, I mean, I was a mess. And
I went keto. I went keto. Ask my husband how awful that was.
Yeah, we'll just get our husbands together and they'll just talk about how terrible it was when their wives try to get rid of sugar. It was terrible. And then the second time was during my contest prep. So I don't know if you know this, but I was a fitness competitor. And so but my yeast was so out of control that I would stick to this diet. But all I would do is fantasize about food the entire time because I was obsessed and I was so yeasty and I was so miserable and I was starving myself literally. My metabolism was shot. My yeast was overgrown. My gut was a mess. My blood sugar was a mess.
Adrenals
so by the time I had a cheat meal, oh my gosh, I was like, I mean, I was worse than the mom in the pantry shoving her face. I was like that times 10. It's like I ate so much sugar that it just fed the problem that one day, and the rest of the week I was good, but I was still totally out of balance. It was a mess. It was awful.
It's amazing. It's like literally, I tell people, I'm like, think about it. Of everything that you eat, when you stop eating fat, do you have withdrawal? No. When you stop eating protein, do you have withdrawal? No. When you stop eating sugar, yes. That means sugar is a drug.
That's a good point.
Because there is a withdrawal syndrome.
That's a good point, Doctor. Gosh, so smart. Okay, so I think we talked about everything. Oh, did you change your diet right away? What happened with your diet with Plexus?
And I wanted to go back to the my theory on why I was able to drop down on my Cymbalta too. So we'll come back to that. So did I change my diet? Yes, because did I do it begrudgingly and painfully? No. It was the weirdest thing. I got to the point where I actually wasn't craving sugar and I was craving vegetables. And there's 2 stories that I tell everybody because they were kind of mind-blowing. I think I started it the beginning of May, and by Mother's Day my husband came to me. He's like, hey, let's get food from your favorite Chinese place. And I said, great. And I said, can I see the menu? And he said, why don't you just get what you always get, which was of course the batter fried honey sesame chicken, right? Couldn't get any more sugary than that on Chinese food. And I looked at him, I said, I don't know, I'm kind of just craving some vegetables. And he was like right. Where's my wife?
Yeah.
Right. And so I didn't have to change my diet. I wanted to eat healthier. And that was what blew my mind. And then about 2 weeks later, he went to the store and he got ice cream. And mind you, a month before I had been living on a pint or Nutella or whatever to get me through the day. And he went and got ice cream and I was sitting on the patio with the kids and he brought them bowls. And then he brings me a pint of Ben and Jerry's with a spoon stuck in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no, thanks. I'm good.
I know.
Same thing again, he's like, I'm sorry, where are you? So that's the cool thing about Plexus, and this is part of the I love it, is that I didn't have to change my diet. I naturally started craving the foods that were going to make me healthy. Once I got rid of the yeast, I started eating like a normal human. And those people that I had always wanted to be like, the people that walked past the donut and ate the salad or the omelet, I became one of those people finally.
I know. I did not think it was possible. I didn't
either. I thought this was just my genetics and this was the way that I was destined to be for the rest of my life, and diets were always going to be hell.
Me too. And the person who ate like half a cheeseburger, I was like, what? I ate the burger and the fries and the Coke and then I have dessert.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm full.
I know.
You know, there was another time we used to get HelloFresh meals and my husband made a HelloFresh meal and I ate like half of it and I like pushed it away and he goes, did I screw it up? Is it really gross? And I'm like, no, I'm full. Which was, I used to eat until I was engorged because that's what gave me the satiety and the pleasure. And I wasn't eating because I was hungry. I was eating to feed my problems.
It's so fascinating. The whole ghrelin and leptin and like feeling full thing is super fascinating to me lately. I want to do more research on that because I'm just fascinated by how that works and all of the foods that we eat that we don't even feel full and how much we eat. It's terrible.
Right. And didn't they take those rats and they took the gene out that like made leptin and they were just those morbidly obese rats, I think.
And that's America. Yeah. It's because of our food and our additives, right? But
we have leptin genes, so we need to.
Terrible. Okay.
So you said you wanted to talk back.
Sorry, yeah, you said you want to talk about your theory about why you dropped Cymbalta.
Well, and I didn't drop it completely. I'm in the process of dropping it. And so
Okay.
what I started looking into is the beauty of Plexus also is that it has a fully methylated vitamin. And I was like, well, what's this methylated vitamin stuff? And what I came to find out, because nutrition's never really taught in medical school, is that in order to absorb the majority of your vitamins, they need to be methylated. They need to have a methyl group stuck on them. And that's what allows them to be absorbed into the bloodstream. And then methylated folate is actually a precursor to making the serotonin and dopamine in your brain. No methylated folate coming through your gut, no serotonin and dopamine being made in the brain. And so I started to think about how gut health was going to do this. Number one, I probably wasn't absorbing anything because my gut was probably disgusting with a biofilm and all this nastiness. So I probably wasn't even able to absorb half the stuff I was eating. So go ahead, people, buy your vitamins and try and match Plexus. But if you don't clean your gut out first, you're never going to be able to absorb it. So
yes, that was me
literally,
too.
that's you need the whole package. But anyways, back to this, I then started realizing that the MTHFR gene is something that in the regular doctor world gets made fun of a little bit. And I had never really heard of it before. And apparently it is the gene that codes for the enzyme that puts that methyl group onto your folate, onto your other vitamins. And so if you have a mutation in that gene, so there are, I think the numbers are about 40 to 50% of Americans have a mutation in that gene. That just means that it's not working at its maximum capacity. So, you know, why am I getting all this fibromyalgia whereas this person isn't? And I think it has to do with a lot of things. It has to do with I wasn't probably absorbing very well. I probably do have the genetic mutation, so why not just give myself the precursor? And so I gave myself the precursor and I'm like, great, now I'm absorbing it, I'm giving myself the precursor, let's see if I can go down. So I went from 60 to 40 milligrams of Cymbalta about a month ago, didn't notice a difference at all. So I'm now giving my body another month or two and I'm going to drop down to 20. And my ultimate goal within, you know, 6 months of starting Plexus is to be off my Cymbalta, because truly, if my Cymbalta was able to fix all of my pain in 3 days, and the job of Cymbalta is to increase my serotonin and dopamine in my brain, then if I can make my own serotonin and dopamine, I must not need the Cymbalta. And it is not a disease. It is truly a deficiency. And whether you want to make it a vitamin deficiency, a genetic deficiency, something in me wasn't enough. And if one drug can fix it in 3 days, I have got to be able to fix it myself.
I love that. It's not a disease, it's a deficiency.
That's truly what I feel.
Yeah. No,
and there was another girl at the Plexus retreat. It's been a long day, so I'm blanking on everybody's name. But I said to her, I said, would you agree with that? And she said she would. She would agree that, you know, we just don't make our own serotonin and dopamine for whatever reason.
Oh, was it someone who has fibro?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably Sarah. Yeah, Sarah. It was probably Sarah.
Right. And then we've also got into the energetic portion of it, and us both being empaths and how much. Yeah. But that's a whole nother talk, another day.
That's a whole other topic. We could talk. We can just keep talking. Let's keep talking. Okay, so my last question to you is, but that was fabulous, by the way. My last question to you is, what would you say to somebody who wants to do diet alone? They're like, that's fine, but I'm on keto, or I'm on, you know, paleo, and I don't eat sugar, and I eat perfectly, and I watch all my macros, and I check, make sure I get all my nutrients, and I'm going to kill the yeast on its own, or I don't have yeast, or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I didn't think I had yeast either. Funny. So you do.
You do.
You do. And I'll tell you, when I started this with Brooke, I am a cheapskate. Like, I am very cheap. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try this for a couple months. And then, you know, I'll just, you know, I bet I can find this stuff cheaper and I'll piece it together. And she's like, Jill, stop. And I was like, what? You know, and here's what she's like, stop. It's just all going to show up. She goes, don't do that to yourself. Like, you're going to spend all this time trying to find like all these different supplements. And by the time you found everything that's in Plexus, you're going to be out way more than a couple $100 a month. Yeah. Way more. And it was foolish to think, but I am a cheapskate. So I do try and like game the system those ways. I'm like, oh, well, I'll just figure out which ones are really important and I'll just buy those.
Oh, I did it too.
Yeah. But you can. And here's the thing is, like I was talking about earlier, like you can go ahead and take methylated folate, but if you don't have the system, the triplex combo where you are getting rid of that biofilm, you are killing off your yeast and you're getting the better bacteria in there, you're not going to absorb the methylated folate. You're not going to absorb these vitamins. And so, you know, first off, you can't just try and piece this together. This is a system, and it is a beautiful system. I don't know where they came up with this, but it works. And so, and I think if you tried to piece it together yourself, you're going to end up with not as quality products, and you're going to be spending twice as much money. So don't even try. I'm a cheapskate. I'm telling you right now, it's not worth it to even try that. And number two, it was so interesting because I was in a beauty salon a couple weeks ago, and I heard these women say, you know, oh, we got this Peloton. Have you been using it? Well, no, I haven't. I mean, why bother? I'm fat, you know, there's a pandemic, and, you know, there's no point in even eating healthy anymore because our food supply is such crap. Like, if I really ate everything that I needed to get all my nutrients, I'd be eating 24/7, and I just don't like that kind of food that much to eat that much. And it was just funny that, you know, and these were hairdressers talking, and it's like, wow, even, you know, Joe Public understands that our food supply sucks. If you were to take your lettuce or your vegetables from 15, 20 years ago and measure the amount of nutrients in it, it's not the same anymore. So good luck with that, trying to get everything that you need from your diet, because it's just not there, and you're going to have to eat all day. And I'd rather just take a supplement and then eat what my body craves, which is going to be a small salad with a little bit of dressing and a little bit of, you know,
Yes.
protein in it and these things. I'm not going to sit here and shove myself full of like 20 heads of lettuce. Or my friend's mom, she gets an entire thing of celery and she juices it every day, and she's got this book of like what vegetables she needs to eat for her ailments. And I'm thinking, well, that's great, you're retired and you have all day to juice your life away, but I'm busy, I've got kids, I've got a full-time job, I don't have time, and I can get all of this from this package of supplements done.
Totally. And, you know, I read somewhere that it takes like 2 to 3 years to do a diet, what you can do with supplements in a few months for yeast overgrowth.
Yeah.
Because like getting your gut in balance, I mean, I don't know how you do that. Like, you've seen Candida diets, I'm sure. They're like legit scary, especially if you have Candida yeast overgrowth. Can you imagine having yeast overgrowth, having the cravings that you and I had because of the yeast? Because yeast is gnarly. When it comes to like causing cravings, like it's legit.
Gnarly.
It's like a monster living inside you. And then you're trying to go on a Candida diet where you're not having any sugar or anything. Nothing. Not even fruit. Like nothing. You get to start
Is that the one that's like
way.
the cayenne pepper or something?
It sounds like absolute hell. I'm just saying. Like, it sounds terrible.
It doesn't sound healthy.
That's true, because you have to cut out so much stuff, right, to try to starve out that yeast. So it's like almost impossible.
Vegetables have carbs. Like, you can't avoid carbs. Like, even, and then that was what blew my mind when I went on a macro diet a couple years ago. She's like, no, vegetables have carbs, you have to count them. I'm like, but they don't taste good, why do I count them?
Yes,
but they're gross, I'm not going to count them as carbs.
And now I love them. And now
I love them.
I know. I now eat like a bowl full of green beans when I used to eat like a bowl full of ice cream. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, I don't quite do that. I'm more like Thomas, where a bowl of fruit actually makes me happy as ice cream.
Does it? That's awesome, though. That's awesome. And so has your hunger gone down too? You said like your portions are smaller?
Yeah, they definitely are. And the cool thing about the Slim Drink was, you know, these people who do the intermittent fasting, which again, if you watch Thomas, really is the best way to do it. I would wake up hungry and I'm like, how do people make it till noon? Like, I mean, I would be climbing the walls, and just naturally now I wake up in the morning, I drink my Slim Drink, and it's about 2.5 hours before I want any food at all. And that to me is just amazing. I only eat like 2 meals a day, and so truly I'm curious how much money I save on food.
That's true,
because I eat less.
That's a good point, though. I mean, all the sweets and all the extra foods and all the eating outs because you're starving and you need, like, you know, whatever you need, whatever you're craving. Yeah, that's a really good point, though. We were talking about all the different supplements that you're taking. What did you start with, and what are you taking to help? Because I know there's lots of different things that can help the serotonin. So I'm assuming Triplex plus X Factor plus, methylated vitamin, Vital Biome as well.
I did do Vital Biome, and here was my thing is, and I'm trying to do more research on this. unfortunately, the serotonin that you make in your gut does not cross the blood-brain barrier. So I want people to understand that Vital Biome is great. It increases serotonin in the gut. And for all those people who start doing their research and they're like, wait, serotonin doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. You're right, you don't. So really the benefit of increasing your serotonin and dopamine comes from the X Factor Plus, which is your methylated folate. The Vital Biome is interesting because it does, those bacteria do help produce other psychoactive chemicals like GABA, and GABA will cross the blood-brain barrier. And so your Ativans are things that act on your GABA receptors. So Ativan is, a very calming medication. So if you are making the GABA and that is crossing the blood-brain barrier, there are other psychoactive substances that are being made. And there was a study they did where they took these women and they put all of them through this like emotional, like, I don't know, something emotionally upsetting or whatever. And then they sent one set home with like to drink kefir or some sort of like heavily, like, just very fermented milk. And then they gave one set like yogurt, and then they sent one set home and just said, eat whatever you want. And then they came back and they retested their ability to cope with like an emotionally upsetting. And the ones who had been drinking the kefir had a significant improvement in their ability to deal with an emotionally stressful situation.
Interesting. So good gut bacteria from the fermented. Okay.
Yep. Right? Yeah. Okay. Good gut bacteria helping you reduce your anxiety. So there's research out there. It's not necessarily the serotonin that's doing it, but these bacteria are producing other psychoactive substances, and that's to be determined. Or need to do more research.
Well, totally. And I love your journey. Your journey is awesome. I love that you're sharing it and you're helping so many people. And thank you for coming on my feed and letting me share your story. I love it.
Absolutely. This is so much fun. I love chatting with everybody that I got to meet at the whole retreat and stuff.
I know.
So
we love you. Yeah. We love you. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't think I talked to you a whole lot till like the last day or two. So I was like, oh man, I really missed out on spending more time with you earlier.
I was a little overwhelmed. I mean, in my mind, when I was thinking a retreat, I was like, oh, an escape for my children. And then I rolled in the door and there were like 55 women and I was like, shit, abort. So I was kind of napping and like in my own cocoon for the first couple days.
I sensed that a little bit. So I waited until the time, but I try to spend time with everybody, like in a little bit, just to meet everybody and talk to everybody. I don't think I got everybody this time, but I like to just at least introduce myself and talk to everybody for a few minutes. But so I was glad I got to at the end of the day, especially now that I know that you may be my neighbor in a couple of years. So that's awesome.
I know. That'll be so much fun. So much fun.
Yeah. We'll let our husbands get together and talk about how terrible we were before Plexus and how lovely we are now. How kind,
we're such lovely people.
How well we eat all the time.
How calm we are with our children. I don't look at any stripes. We're perfect now, right? Perfect.
Thanks for your time, friend.
Absolutely, my friend. You have a wonderful evening. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
All right, bye.